Uzia Kennedy a compare kwa Agyapong ne lawyer ene one anas aremya wanas enso so Council of Defense dia feso e court den na uzia audio ya okwa akotie e court audio a intercepted ene Ahmed Suale enso so ne killer a ya che no e ho nsensem a boboba.
The front line has again intercepted an audio recording revealing the Defense Counsel for Kennedy Agyapong mounted a spirited pushback at the trial judge concerning some mistakes committed by the jurors and the jurors, because Omodoson, and that's the plural word, the jurors, and the case in the JC court in the United States. And me pese wutie and na me din kan ka kire say anas are emiyaw anas ode maxi wedi ka ba bontia ba me yeti ase say anyo wedi nkunim na jurors no aye den ama ne judgment. Now, no, make a choice. Say, no, wait a minute, don't get it twisted. As for them, they believe in twists and turns and propaganda and spinning. But the truth of the matter is, a brad judge ni rule jurors ni a verdict ni we pet. And a Kennedy lawyer no a catcher judge no, you can't. Or catching it straight, so you can't give a ruling because mistakes be a koso. And some mistakes ni na ne koku we say as a say some they call mistrial. At least kweku, I'm not a lawyer, but massa. With our deep level in intelligence gatherings and investigations in MDS, and us about the cancer wanka, but an agree secure some information. Na maybe bachelor, me money video version, me board the audio version actually. So say in video no, ube who said jurors no and it's offense in the U.S. court say ube ye video jurors no protect them. And us doesn't care. On only video no jurors no move me a law abiding. It's me board audio version. Ne TNA. Ubeti say abrofono ubeti anas lawyer na kasa ubeti Kennedy Agyapong defense counsel also kasa slang ne dawson but yes ubeti ti audio ni ye ne ti asem a lawyer no okachre judge no about the mistrial case. Take a listen to this carefully.
This is what the jury said. In our initial finding, we awarded $18 million with a breakdown of presumed damages $5 million, actual damages $5 million, and punitive damages $8 million.
We're done.
No, Judge. I'm requesting a mistrial. The court to consider punitive damages in the initial, and you can't mold the verdict. I'm once again requesting a remitter based upon that, and a new trial should be granted based upon that response, Judge. They were not considered. They were outside of your. I'm just making a record, Judge, now, if I could. Those are outside your instructions. They were required to follow your instructions. They didn't follow your instructions. You're not permitted to mold that verdict because that's not form. A judge can only mold form. For instance, there's a lien, and you can mold the lien if the parties agree. You could pre-tax versus post-tax income. The judge is permitted to mold the verdict based upon the specific evidence that was presented. You are not allowed to mold that verdict. That's a remitter. There should be a new trial granted, and unfortunately, they did their job, and we should send them home.
Judge, basically, my thought is on their form, which is what was submitted to the court. It did state that it was presumed damages. On that basis, I believe that the instruction that Your Honor should send back was that the punitive damages and the actual damages were not included in that judgment.
Mr. Forson.
I'd like to see the law, Judge. I think Your Honor is more than equipped than either of us to understand that when the jury sends that back and they haven't followed your instructions, and you can't send them back to re-deliberate, had they had that question during deliberations, you could have given an instruction. curative instruction and brought them in and said punitive damages are for not to decide, just decide. First of all, there should have been actual damages because there was only presumptive damages presented. There were no actual damages. And Judge, it's just simply a mistrial. It's a mistrial. We need to go no further.
Okay, so Mr. Forson, it's your request that we discharge the jury, right?
We discharge the jury and you declare a mistrial, you put it back in the hopper, we'll be back in 6 to 8 weeks, either with your honor or another judge.
Okay, and what's your request, Mr. KiIIer?
My request is a curable. Is a curable error. I mean, they made a decision. Granted, it wasn't a decision supported by the instructions, but if they did come back and award punitives where they shouldn't have awarded punitives, Your Honor can correct that by curative instruction. So I don't see a mistrial here, but I leave it to your judgment, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. KiIIer a question. So Mr. Forson, please don't interrupt. So Mr. KiIIer, why isn't a valid verdict $5 million on presumed damages, $5 million on the actual damages, and $8 million on the punitive damages?
I would accept that. The only problem I have is that they weren't instructed on punitive damages, so that would go outside the instructions that Your Honor gave them. Yes.
Okay. And so Mr. Forson, you want to say anything?
Yes, Judge. I'll use plaintiff's argument about unringing the bell. We have no idea if the actual and presumed damages would have been different had they followed your instructions. We can't go into their mind. Once they say that, Judge, they anticipated something they shouldn't have. It's not a valid verdict, and more importantly, Judge, the rules do not permit you to mold that verdict. It's not a question. You're not permitted to now change that verdict. Now, maybe if it was a different verdict sheet, things would have been different. If it was broken down separately, they would have had more clarity, but they didn't. But Your Honor is not permitted, once you find that out, to do anything else but cause a mistrial, because that verdict has been returned and it cannot be cured. You cannot go back and have them reconvene.
Well, Judge, this all boils down to Mr. Corriston's own insistence that we take punitive damages off the original verdict sheet. If you remember what I did, I put it on the second page, and then we had a break saying return to. So I think if they had the original verdict sheet, they would have recognized that they weren't supposed to go beyond the compensatory. But somehow he insisted that we take it off the verdict sheet completely and have a separate verdict sheet. And this is what has created this problem. It's curable, at least I think, but I leave it to your judgment, Your Honor.
Okay, the court's decision is we are going to bring the jury in, we'll discharge the jury, and then we can keep talking.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, please bring the jury in.
What's here? Mami, say na here. Did you see? Did you hear? What is the judge? What is asma judge in the kind? Nyame na me kasa. Ubia nkasem. Anasa nkasem ubi. Kennedy Kwame Akumpre kon ankasa mu bi. Obi ankasa Ghana ni bi ankasa bi anasa ankasa bi o. An Anas Defense Council. Any Kennedy Kwame Akumpre ko Japan Council any judge no mu gyina hodi asie ni. Na what the Kennedy Japan Council na catch the judge no. Also what? You cannot move this verdict. You cannot move this or kasa kire judge no he we ni bre kwan so. It's about the saying and I'm moving Ghana ha. I catch Ghana for say, hey, when your verdicts and that $18 million. You bet chase came obi enya biedi. You bet $18 million. Mobia enya bi edi. Obia benya biedi. Ye di bibe wo fufuo di bia wo aye tuozafi ade na ni kire ye ba be break fasting bibia wo tuozafi bibia bo apesi efufuo nom ne ade ye gugugu so nom ne didi ne anom. Why not? But I said nentesa it ade na mu be twa ntro. Now you know what? Anna's defense counsel, me Papa Pana Sempa, he speaks so well, very constructive, very very good. Oh, you're very nice man. Me Penasem, the lawyer, yeah. Me Kasintiano. Oh yeah, but I think say, Sadia, oh yeah, too fast enough. No be spinning around. Says when in the Caribbean church says, judgment, suppose judgment, written judgment, and well, folks, the lawyers for a year, friend is saying, Abrante didn't aquatrimi. Daniel Owusu Cranton, also known as Amache Womo Studio, they will join me shortly. But before, my young Manasuna Mene, director of research of this program, also an on person may expose it, BB. Our Humanaso, nearly name one year said, Adia Nas who call ye Ayetia ye justice system no. Saying so far your research analysis ayano ye ni lawyers be akasa nim ne ade ye de betu bia nche how so far the build up and it is saying and not Kofi jury is on the line. Kofi memwajo now what is saying okay me hane de Mahama ne Professor Jena no Puku Ajman ye pem so a good all right now Kofi and somebody I mean say wait but most especially only a show ne Wednesdays will be basso now and then we want you to stay on so far the research away on the ground with respect to Anas taking our justice system to the cleanest. What have you uncovered so far?
So far, no. When it comes to the judicial service now, a lot of practitioners are not happy. Legal brains, they are not happy with the system. Once in the judicial day, at what point in time, now, so who there, oh yeah, judicial service, no, who do sometimes on your face.
Yeah.
Was it the time now? For come on and continue.
And Grofon come on in Ponche.
Oh,
that's right.
You part all man of continue by that's why it was and you all sorry. Was it that time in when I have sometimes on your face? Another the time now on your continue to see home. Another the time of the terrorist. That's one question. Again, the same system of condemning for the person that made me a lawyer. So again, what the BBC and also on the ground the day is announcement of Ghana having a court case. A very sporty case now for America, and I will be to Ghana. Because service is one year sometimes you cross and do. If you say a case, about these are kind of questions on the ground. And then other lawyers people want to win Babanazi. But kind of question one question you didn't want to know. And the man now why you know Yada, every day, you Ghana, then question to move. Papa, you will what to do. But that is what my own idea. But take down one into the you got the
Kofi.
Now, make us say, per the research kakra, yeah, no. And I said, into what you come fancy, and then I move flow pa. Research kakra, yeah, interviews the kakra, no. Some of the legal, brains and you want to say, no, I'm putting one Baba camera. And also, they didn't want audio as it. The moment was off record info when yanka, we can still give it out. If you are candidate, no problem at what point in time. And at last, I remember you and us, who do sometimes Ghanaian court system, one shut down your face. Was it the period that no champon, another time na you question the court no you know mo hu the do baby a court system no won ye fair another time o ka no terrorist no and hu the sana won ye fair. The same system now so no according to some of them they made him a lawyer. The same system now all condemn no. It at the end one guy did this question there. It is not see so a case for Ghana ha. But about Ghanaian court are all condemn no. Another was there where's 40 case for the America. That's one question that it say. Now me face I also make a very important point today. In that case, now, the point here by there. Court system, no, it has not always been, it has not always been fair, no. It will mean that the case is not Ankasa will deal with it, no. From the time I know and now I be seen there, we still walk back, watch the Ninialim one by one, because this and that bring out a very, very important point. The court system, no, do baby on Shatta and Yefe, to the extent that they even failed to deliver judgment on his case. Come on us, into in that case, no, they are planning there. I mean, they will push that agenda. Every case now, and why you know? Because of the concern, they have to go back to it. Because a lot of people have lost their lives, their businesses, and other things. It's you bringing this concern.
Yes.
These are some of the things that we've been persuaded. So some of the things that are there in Ibine.
Yeah, sorry. Me break it. Now, so far, what then we are getting from Anasa, Obi Beka, so maybe a little pain. Just as it was court in the assembly year man in tea. You say, or ye terrorist. Now, terrorist, they what to whom Abakwa Samo Memo as a journalist, politician, businessman, a man of God, any ye really say. Just say, would you therefore suggest, because that ruling from Justice Bano was quite harsh, and that could infuriate Aremia to say, I knew. Because you say, or a terrorist or terrorist, whichever way you call it, and Emma Okekansemze.
You see, that could be a key factor, I know. But bear in mind today, and I'm not seeing Ankasado. You see, I teach now call local power. The Ghana call the Ghana football called no, yes, small. Unfortunately, the way I get to war, we are seeing, especially in this country of ours called Ghana, no.
Yeah.
Me you put in your own being odun. Nama naswa oti because I'm pay reading. I could Facebook and other social media platforms. You put no headline. I know I start to insult. Even program here, just go beneath. I don't let insult be or just headline our piece of view of one word be financial. We need the detail about into detail. But one thing people must understand is. Them enyama anase de ya nkofo 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 no. Them nkofo no, how did they feel?
How did they feel?
One in KJ baby friend no anase kwa ampo there. Or this or that. Another will be KJ baby there because of anase into them judge or evil and them judge or today or to them. Our couple judge anything. But in this case, anase no too much for trainer kwamra kaka so about justice binding. Do you know what you've done to him? Sometimes when it comes to matters relating to Anasa, it didn't mean I gained them. So saint so I do not need the same saint Anas. Because maybe I say when it comes to this country, when you would be like you people who are the day not I think never could be JD. Even when you are presenting evidence, go to program is say comment section be say bring the fact is very good that you should view. So by our nature the way we think and the way we are brought up oh my name do or Ghana ha but then say it for that word now what the man now know why you yo man do waka kade young usual service or today no for me no so then ankasa to issue statement, not me, because what I would have expected him to say that case nam di fi Ghana hamdo kweno. it was not deliberate, friend, the Ghanaian court system. No, far from that. I respect that. But what really happened there? Kennedy na mimi asamno. Eho no kaka asamno. That is why anam do mamoko. It was not because the mumbu yan court system mubu court na pa. Nemu bebi okeja okaka asam no say moko am kaka mo ba ye kile bi. Kennedy family conquer England and on another state bi na country bi. Na so son kaka nsem bi dem ho. Nti moko na so we stop no ha. At least no obo na so to kono akasa and wa kebibia from ho a. Sebiu osedoiden ojuno. This is how he was supposed to have presented it. I bet so if you need as a winning as a white, so be a movie series. Never drive back a day. Ghanaian court system no on your papa. Sometimes no, I cannot have papa because as well. They would be one shut down here fair. At one point in time, I want Gazana window on your fair. What point in time? So these are the things that I believe we should be looking at.
Great. But then quickly before you go, would you again also raise some fundamental aspect of, say, Anas, Kriya, so then Sembia Ko, our justices Ninim MNG Ruliman, including, say, your former Chief Justice Theodore Wood, Enim, and or time or ye, no way na, ewo memo, Obia and Casao, Emma Judge for. And Crawford Papanum and Crawford Kunum and Emniade, Yamanas, a quine, Emo Yedubina. Nanon swear, where was then the justice system, the Ghana General Legal Council, there will be a raise where nobody cough a breath or cough anything. And those you're kind of saying, what do you make of that?
So, there, I'm a perception, you're one thing.
God.
Ghana Krona, a woman. Adom, Ghana, ha, both parties. I was seducing some people and this no what for Ghana and Domu, what do you want to do behind? Because I know, yeah, Kofibia, ya payena menche, Nium Bonsi. Ayana Mesha, Nemenuati, Memun Mamatno. But you don't believe in going beyond the evidence sometimes to try to understand certain things. To a long run, Ebi, no, not innocent person, baby, no. We know the unkilled man, not Nasha Bibi. Now, these judges here and us do one cover all this situation in me. Obiano Waka one where did it judge be? Most of Ketifi, most of your stroke in your stroke. But a long run, American, the legal counsel, no, in your maybe a while. Now, Usudan can away than Obogu. And this thing, just as you said, started with President Mills, no time. How dare a war commander in chief, a war security team, never back up a private investigator and undercover guy there, uncle, no co-investigating for. What do you think you are doing to your own security team? It's at that point now, can they feel it a big?
I see.
If you know, one question, Kofi will be said, now that's a question of this powerful. I will believe you
think that we made him so powerful to some extent?
Oh, yes. We did it. And Nagasagana for 9 years, especially that era, that administration. And I remember the Rimonacha Crown at one point in time questioned that in the why do you say what sponsor said? Because we can't do that. We have a security, we have security team. It's a parade. I did Ghana Hayawa Biano Papa. And if you got a cream, man, so Bibi Ghana Hadia Papa. The idea of employing his services against the military intelligence, the NIB or BNI, the CID, SF, all these intelligence agencies in Yano. We for private person meant that Wayankofa and Jumundi. And interestingly, who did an investigate at the time? Customs, another security agency. So from that point, Aquano one. Or be a powerful word, most next time, I mean, like masking and any motum do call most one day. MPP time, go for the time, but shall mask the same thing, but the Ketsna or friend, Nana do name. How? Oh, do baby cry, Qualaba Court, and now I didn't Trinity, God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Wait, then who will be a or an ass Nankasa?
And this kind of jokes were entertained by the state apparatus, including the commander in chief of the security service.
Now, I want to crown commander in chief in crown. Everybody doing too much. How about the chief justice at the time? How about the judicial service themselves?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even brown. How? There, I catch them there. You put the same to me, Trinity. God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. No aba. No le bele biti ni nemu ene ye document se ni mi so ate. Na
fanciful Kofi, I feel me move for want of time you know but quickly the guy Amachi now incarceration. You know Amachi well. As a security expert, what do you make of and then the evidence police are due suggests that okay, or the picture come out Kennedy and I feel so Yehunwe area he fled. So fled, the word fled means to say normal or I don't know. And then to his place of abode in Amazon. So far, what have you gathered behind all of that of what the police is, putting across? Does that build enough premier fashi?
Excellent question. And I'm so glad this question has come up. Let's look at this whole thing. Fair now, police say, evidence or your friend I think chats be he can be placed at the scene or at the vicinity at the time of the crime. Fair enough. Again, we believe you today, and it's not the pictures, Adom can. Fair enough. Question today. The hits no called or Madina woman you female.
Good.
It was not a one-man job. From witnesses, it was more than one, either 2 or 3. Them go no kept all where them hits as watching per one. Move to market day. It's true. At that time, na Amachi, no waha, no jinaha. Watch you Madam confession now.
Okay.
No. When to be again. Them ain't look at the pictures now. Amachi Adom can. Pictures say yesterday you got pictures anymore. Before I'm about to do that, as to whether I true that the man and one family. Let's look at the pictures idea.
Okay.
Second, pictures not be TV doing tea in the Wukwa bench now. Again, watch the suspect to be in Mwaka there. Oh, are you true there? Pictures now. A match the mum. Another the man can, and I cancel the mum. And Mr. Also said that Amache was the one of the man.
Okay.
And you see, Muslim do could do
the chronicle
like that.
Yes, the chronicle. Okay.
Okay. Now, when you tell me again there, all evidence now another chat will place the guy at the crime scene now. Majatum fair enough. But can you place a gun in the guy's hand at the scene with the same evidence? So if you can all these answers in here, no. Mean say again, what could be undercover guy? Undercover does not mean to cover your face. This is what you used to do. You put this and you winning at the bar out. I want to hear him.
Yeah.
Ghana, I want to say.
And that's not DPA or the meaning Pian.
Yes. And the time no Ghana will be a no one knew, no behind you.
And people don't know this. People don't know this history. Yes.
Yes. What when him back out, or shoot you and
no.
It's happened to a guy there. What will be the picture that out because of that. The distance I yank you be a because even so be back out back okay, may confess that true. The Amachi no swam them that confession will say one or you'll be our force and our bribe no madam confess. We have to even authenticate that thing. We have to look at it. We are talking about murder case here. That's what I say. So there are so many variables as far as this thing is concerned now. And I mean, who evidence over to my cat because I can okay because of the chat. At the time now I didn't see no or area where I know my mind been asked more can they don't be a human or as I say, we do a bit of bush. No, I live by the new you 50 we soon you all about. About him. I go about him now. Why can't you no bush all about what you
that's correct.
I've been to that bank company no deal or tram no all about the I need a joke I work. Now, Paddy, I say the evidence can place him at the scene. What makes you think that at the time maybe I don't care any BBO? In this one, any BBO because of say you do book into the matter come on or a prophet who do book of you or one.
God.
And now can they also get us conversation actually between Ahmed and Paddy? Bibi called on one thing, actually, Paddy, like, what catching doing a Paddy or Bokun. No evidence be Adam, but police and police, maybe
good one.
And the meaning there, so back a picture, so the camera can mean how I established the Madino.
Okay.
But they don't be
God. Very well, good delivery. Kofi, you do see us because the build up now shall say. Now,
all right.
You be jam work because there's still other things we are away na minya na konafi.